There are moments in sports when the spotlight shifts faster than anyone expects. And this was one of those moments. For weeks, Rex Ryan was the loudest voice questioning Shedeur Sanders. He wasn't subtle about it. He didn't try to hide behind statistics or careful language. He came straight at Shedeur's attitude, confidence, and readiness, saying he talked too much and didn't deserve the role he wanted. Those words stuck, and the narrative around Shedeur started forming before he even had a chance to prove himself. But one performance changed everything. The same player Rex was publicly calling out stepped onto the field and delivered the kind of game that instantly rewrites opinions. The deep throws didn't just hit their targets. They turned into the kind of highlight plays that get replayed across sports shows and social media. The poise didn't look like a rookie trying to survive. It looked like someone who belonged in the spotlight from the beginning. And the moment those throws hit, you could feel the conversation shift. That's where the real story begins. Because instead of doubling down on his take, Rex started walking it back. The harsh language disappeared. The confidence in his criticism faded. Suddenly, his attention shifted to another quarterback. Suddenly, he was talking about arm talent and potential. Suddenly, Shedeur was a player he always believed in. The problem wasn't just that Rex was wrong. It was how fast he tried to bury his original take once the evidence stacked up against him. That's what makes this moment so fascinating. It wasn't just a rookie proving he could play. It was a young quarterback forcing one of the most outspoken voices in the league to adjust his entire opinion on the fly. The narrative Rex tried to control slipped out of his hands, and the performance spoke louder than any words ever could. Because in the NFL, talk means nothing when the ball is snapped. And Shedeur Sanders didn't answer the criticism with quotes or arguments. He answered it with the only thing that truly changes minds in this league: results. Before Shedeur ever got the chance to show what he could do on the field, Rex Ryan was already building the narrative against him. It wasn't a mild critique. It wasn't a cautious, let's wait and see breakdown. Rex came straight for Shedeur with one of the harshest takes we've heard from a national analyst in years. He questioned everything. Not the talent, but the mentality. He said Shedeur talked too much, walked around with the confidence of a starter he hadn't earned, and acted like the league owed him something. The comments weren't about mechanics or scheme. They were about character. That's what made it sting. He didn't say Shedeur needed work. He said he should be embarrassed. He painted him as someone relying more on image than preparation. Suggested that the entire NFL saw the same thing. Those words didn't get lost in a broadcast. They spread across clips, social media, and debate shows. Suddenly, Shedeur wasn't being judged by what he did in college or what coaches said about his potential. He was being judged by a storyline, the loud rookie who hadn't earned his place. Fans pushed back. Some analysts questioned why Rex was going so hard so early. But the criticism was already out there, and like it always does in sports, it started shaping the perception. It became less about Shedeur the player and more about Shedeur the personality. The idea that he was all talk, all show, and not enough substance started gaining traction. And that's the irony. At that moment, the kid hadn't even been given the stage to answer any of it. He hadn't thrown a pass, hadn't run an offense, and hadn't faced a professional defense. Yet the standard was already set. He was expected to fail before he ever got a chance to succeed. That was Rex Ryan's role in this story. He planted the seed of doubt. He tried to define Shedeur before the season could. And for a while, people listened. But the beauty of this league is simple. Narratives don't last long when the truth finally steps onto the field. The moment Shedeur finally stepped onto the field, the storyline started to unravel. Everything Rex Ryan claimed about confidence without production, about talk without proof, began to crumble, one throw at a time. Because Shedeur didn't just play well, He played in a way that demanded respect. The deep passes weren't lucky shots. They weren't routine completions anyone could make. They were the kind of throws that define quarterbacks who take over games instead of just managing them. The numbers spoke loudly. Before Shedeur arrived, the Browns had only one completion over 35 yards all season. In his first significant outing, Shedeur that with multiple explosive plays. One pass after another stretched the defense, and suddenly the offense looked like a different machine. He didn't hesitate. He didn't second guess. He threw with confidence, touch, and vision. And when the ball traveled downfield, it felt like every player on the field knew where it was going to end up. But it wasn't just the stats that changed the conversation. It was the way he handled the moment. The pocket collapsed, and instead of panicking, he slid, stepped, and threw with the calm of a veteran. He extended plays without losing control. He made decisions that rookies usually struggle with. Those are the traits coaches look for when they talk about long-term potential. Those are the qualities that separate starters from temporary fill-ins. Fans didn't need the highlight reel to tell the story. You could see it in the reactions from players on the sideline. You could hear it in the broadcast. You could feel the shift happening as the game unfolded. The narrative no longer fit. The idea that Shedeur wasn't ready started to look like the coldest take in the room. That single performance didn't just silence the doubts. It put pressure on the critics to explain why they ever doubted him in the first place. Because once a quarterback delivers on the field, the conversation changes. And Shedeur didn't just answer the questions, he forced everyone to ask new ones. The most revealing moment in this entire situation wasn't when Rex Ryan praised Shedeur. It was when he tried to change the subject. Instead of standing on what he said earlier or admitting that his original take didn't age well, he shifted the spotlight to someone completely different. Dillon Gabriel. It felt less like analysis and more like a scramble to rewrite the conversation before anyone could call out the contradiction. Just a few weeks earlier, Rex was pointing his criticism directly at Shedeur. But once Shedeur answered back on the field, Rex suddenly stopped talking about the things he didn't like about Shedeur and started tearing down Gabriel instead. He claimed Gabriel wasn't NFL material, lacked the traits needed to lead a team, and didn't belong in the conversation. The timing was impossible to ignore. It looked like an escape hatch. Move the criticism to somebody else and hope everyone forgets what was just said about Shedeur. Fans picked up on it immediately. The conversation online turned fast. People pointed out that the arguments Rex used against Gabriel were basically the same ones he used on Shedeur. Only now, Shedeur no longer fit the label. That's what exposed the shift. It wasn't thoughtful analysis or a new perspective. It looked like a way, even while he complimented Shedeur's arm talent and potential, Rex made sure to distance himself from responsibility. He insinuated that he always knew Shedeur had the skills. He emphasized how many deep throws Shedeur made and how impressive they were. It was a complete reversal, but without acknowledging the original criticism ever existed. That pivot didn't make the situation look better. It highlighted the exact problem. Because instead of standing behind his take or owning the mistake, Rex chose to redirect the attack. And in sports media, that move is as transparent as it gets. It wasn't Shedeur who changed the conversation. It was Rex trying to keep up with it. Once Rex pivoted away from Shedeur and tried redirecting his criticism, other analysts refused to let it slide. The debate didn't stay silent for long because people who actually studied the game saw something different in Shedeur's performance, something Rex had. Either ignored or misjudged, Dan Orlovsky was one of the first to respond, and he didn't waste time trying to soften the situation. He said what a lot of fans were already thinking. Shedeur's confidence wasn't arrogance. It was leadership. It was exactly the mentality you want from the guy running your offense. Orlovsky broke it down in a simple way. When Shedeur said he was what the Browns needed, that wasn't bragging. It was belief. And if a quarterback doesn't believe in himself, no one else will. He dismissed the idea that Shedeur should have toned it down or spoken differently. He pointed out that the criticism didn't match the reality, especially after the performance he just delivered. Those weren't comments meant to inflate a narrative. They were direct, thoughtful pushback against a take that suddenly didn't hold up anymore. And it wasn't just one analyst stepping in. The conversation shifted across multiple shows and platforms. Fans started comparing Rex's original critique with his new tone, and the contrast was impossible to ignore. One week, Shedeur was supposedly a talker with no substance. The next week, he was being praised for arm talent and poise. Analysts questioned why Rex was so quick to tear down a young quarterback, but hesitant to praise him when it mattered. Former players joined the conversation too. They pointed out that Shedeur didn't respond with drama or interviews. He responded by controlling the game and making plays. That's when the criticism started to look less like tough analysis and more like a rushed judgment. The reaction from the media and players proved something important. Shedeur didn't just change people's opinions, he exposed the inconsistency in how he was judged. And the more analysts spoke up, the more obvious it became that Rex Ryan wasn't just wrong. His entire narrative had the turning point in his whole story didn't come from quotes or arguments. It came from plays that couldn't be explained away. The first throw that shifted the room was the 57-yard strike down the right side of the field. It wasn't just a big gain. It was a reminder of what separates elite quarterbacks from everyone else. Shedeur didn't just drop back and heave it. He shifted in the pocket, moved defenders with his eyes, and launched the ball with perfect touch. It hit his receiver in stride, and even though the slip prevented an instant touchdown, the throw was flawless. It showed anticipation, accuracy, and control. All the things Rex claimed weren't there. Then came the second moment. A rollout to the right, defenders closing in, and Shedeur still kept his eyes downfield. Jerry Jeudy broke open, and Shedeur delivered another deep shot that should have been a highlight of its own. The only reason it didn't turn into a score, fumble after the catch, but the throw was undeniable. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a broken coverage. It was a quarterback reading the field and making the exact decision the situation demanded. That's when fans and analysts realized these weren't one-off plays. They were patterns. Pocket movement, awareness, timing, confidence, traits that don't show up by accident. Even when a play didn't end perfectly, the part Shedeur controlled was exceptional. He wasn't just keeping the Browns' offense alive, he was elevating it. And that's the part Rex couldn't argue with anymore. You can debate personality, you can debate interviews and quotes, but you can't debate ball placement or arm talent when the film gives you the answer. Those throws shut down the narrative that Shedeur wasn't ready. They shut down the idea that he was more talk than results. They forced everyone watching to acknowledge what was right because in that moment, Shedeur Sanders did what great quarterbacks do. He changed the story without saying a single word. As Shedeur kept proving it on the field, the criticism Rex Ryan started wasn't just challenged by stats or highlights. It was challenged by voices around the league. One of the loudest was Cam Newton. He didn't hold back or sugarcoat the issue. He called out the entire circus around Cleveland. And he pointed right at the commentators who were fanning the flames. Cam said what a lot of people were already thinking. The conversation around Shedeur wasn't about football anymore. It had become personal. The criticism wasn't based on performance or preparation. It was based on how some people wanted to label him. Cam questioned why the same confidence that gets celebrated in other quarterbacks suddenly becomes arrogance when it's Shedeur. He pointed out the double standard in real life. time, and he wasn't the only former player to step in. Others spoke up too, saying Shedeur's mindset wasn't the problem. It was his advantage. Confidence isn't something you teach. It's something quarterbacks need when the game is on the line. That's the part some analysts missed. Rumors started circulating that the Browns organization wasn't happy about the narrative either. Reports suggest team officials felt the commentary was unfair and didn't reflect what was happening in the locker room. That's when head coach Kevin Stefanski stepped in and shut down the criticism directly. He didn't talk about potential or hope. He talked about the work Shedeur was putting in every day. He talked about his commitment, his preparation, and how teammates responded to him. It wasn't defensive or emotional. It was factual. That chorus of support changed the tone of the conversation. Suddenly, Rex wasn't debating a young quarterback anymore. He was up against former players, coaches, and fans who all saw something he didn't. The backlash didn't happen because Shedeur talked. It happened because the people who actually understand the game could see the truth behind the noise. In the NFL, when the insiders start defending you, it means the narrative outside is already collapsing. And that's exactly what happened here. The moment the Browns stepped into the conversation, everything changed. Until then, most of the noise came from analysts, former players, and fans. But when the organization itself spoke up, it sent a clear message. The narrative being pushed about Shedeur didn't match reality. Kevin Stefanski didn't hesitate when asked about the rumors or Rex Ryan's comments. He didn't dance around the topic or offer a neutral answer. Criticism didn't reflect the player they saw every day. Stefanski talked about the extra reps Shedeur was putting in after practice. He talked about the preparation, the leadership, and the attention to detail. Those aren't traits of a player coasting off confidence. Those are traits of someone trying to earn a role the right way. It wasn't just the words that mattered, it was the timing. The coach didn't wait for the controversy to die down or for the media to move on. He ended the narrative immediately by backing his quarterback publicly. Rumors suggest the front office wasn't happy with how the media tried to portray Shedeur either. They saw a young quarterback doing the work, learning the system, and winning over the locker room. They also saw how quickly criticism can turn into headlines when someone with a big platform wants to stir the pot. So the message from the team was simple. The organization believed in their guy. That kind of support doesn't happen unless a player earns it. You don't see coaches and teammates defend someone just because it's convenient. They do it because they see what outsiders miss: the attitude in meetings, the preparation during the week, the discipline on the field. While the media tried to question Shedeur's mentality, the Browns were seeing leadership. And that's when the narrative flipped for good. When your own organization speaks that loudly, the outside noise stops being relevant. Because in the NFL, the one opinion that matters most is the one from the people you play for. When the story finally came full circle, the most surprising part wasn't that Shedeur silenced a critic. Players do that all the time. What made this moment different was how quickly the conversation flipped the second he proved it on the field. Rex Ryan didn't rethink his opinion because someone corrected him on a show. He backed off because the evidence left him right. Nowhere else to go. One game erased weeks of doubt and replaced it with something Rex couldn't ignore: results. Shedeur didn't have to defend himself or respond to interviews. He didn't fight back with words. He did it with the one thing that carries weight in the NFL: performance. The deep throws, the decision-making, the calm composure when defenders closed in. Those weren't flashes or lucky breaks. They were a preview of the player he can become. Analysts began treating him differently. The tone shifted, the questions grew quieter, and suddenly, Rex wasn't leading the conversation anymore. He was reacting to it. That's how you know something real is happening. When the narrative doesn't just improve, it reverses. When the same people who doubted you are now scrambling to explain why they ever did. When the story turns from criticism into recognition. And the truth is, this moment might only be the beginning. He didn't just win a game. He showed he could control it. He showed he belonged. He showed the pressure wasn't too big. Now the question isn't whether he deserves